Right, welcome everyone. Good evening. Welcome. My name is May Sarton. I'm the director of the library here. I'm really thrilled to welcome Monica Wood for our talk tonight. Thank you all for being here. We have many on Zoom, and we're also recording this talk tonight, so we will post it on our website. And I just wanted to briefly mention too a big thank you to our donors. We're a nonprofit library. We're really reliant on our generous donors to make programs like this possible. So thank you to them. And also just want to mention we do have books available for sale after the talk, and Monica is happy to sign up. So Monica Wood is a novelist, memoirist, and playwright. She is the 2024 recipient of the Sarah Josepha Hale Award for Excellence in the Arts in New England, the 2019 Constance Carlson Prize for contributions to the public humanities in Maine, and the 2018 Maine Writers and Publishers Alliance Distinguished Achievement Award for her contributions to the literary arts. Her newest novel, which she'll talk about tonight, is How to Read a Book. It has already secured translation rights in 5 countries. Her previous novel, the best-selling The 1 in a Million Boy, was translated into 20 languages in over 30 countries. She's also the author of When We Were the Kennedys, a New England bestseller and winner of the May Sarton Memoir Award. Her other fiction includes Any Bitter Thing, Ernie's Arc, and My Only Story. They have also won awards and made bestseller lists. She is also the author of several books for aspiring writers and 3 plays, The Papermaker, The Half-Light, and Saint Dad. She lives in Portland with her husband, Dan Abbott, and their cat, Susie. Welcome, Monica.
I got a little picture today from my cat sitter, and Susie is sulking in the basement. I feel so guilty. I won't be home till Thursday. They do make you pay. So thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. You know, this is a beautiful area in the best season you could possibly be in. And here you are with me tonight instead of out there. And I really, truly appreciate it. The last time I was in where am I? I'm in Northeast Harbor. The last time I was in Northeast Harbor was my first and last sailboat trip. My husband had talked me into first mating on this, how long was that stupid boat?
29 feet.
29-foot sailboat. We have a motorboat. I'm a motor boater. And he said, no, it's gonna be fun. You know, the weather's supposed to be gorgeous and blah, blah. So long story short, by the time we went from Portland to Northeast Harbor, by the time we got here, my eyelashes were dripping. It was so foggy. I mean, it was the kind of fog where I felt like I was inside the lint thing in a dryer. It was that kind of thing. And they didn't have a signaling thing on this ridiculous boat. So he was doing this for a friend. He was taking a friend's boat up. And then we were supposed to then come back in a week and take it back. You can imagine how excited I was about that. So we're coming in and we went through this like really wavy thing that people hate to go through, the Bass Harbor Bar. You can see I'm a real salty dog. And, so we're coming in and it's dark and it's foggy and I can't, and the other thing, I've been blowing this whistle once a minute for about 6 hours. And so I'd say, oh my God, so I'm on the bow of this boat. I can't even see Dan. That's how foggy it is. Everybody goes, well, yeah, so. But, you know, I was scared to death and I'm blowing this thing. So I'd say the prayer of St. Francis, which is the longest prayer I know. So I'd say that and then blow this silly little whistle and then say the prayer again. So that's what I had been doing, dripping wet just from fog. And so we come into the harbor and everything is just kind of coming up. It was really full of boats, which we didn't know since we couldn't see anything. And so I was just yelling back, like, there's a boat like right there on the right-hand side and there's one on that other side. And finally I hear this voice out of the fog saying, can you hear me? And I'm thinking, please don't be St. Peter. There was this lovely man on the gas dock fucking his dog. It was about 11 o'clock at night. And he said, just follow my voice in. I mean, God, the kindness of strangers, right? So we follow him in, and he said, you can dock right here, and you have to be up by, like, I don't know, 4:30 in the morning or something, so that the lobster guys can come in and get their gas. And we said, fine. Neither of us, I'm sure we didn't sleep a wink. Then the morning comes, and it was this glorious, gorgeous morning. I'm sure I'm telling you nothing you don't know. And I look, and there were like a billion boats in this. I'm like, we never would have found a place in those circumstances. So I'm thrilled to be back on land. Yeah, no, this is great. So anyway, thank you. And really and truly, I do appreciate your being here, because I was reminiscing with my friend Paul Dwarin, who we're kind of crisscrossing each other because he's also on a book tour. And we managed to get a cup of coffee the other day. And we were not reminiscing, more like remembering the horrors of the early book tours, and remembering how, people just didn't used to show up, when people don't know you, or you're lucky if you get 10 people. That's a really good night. And people have been really showing up for this tour. It's been delightful. And it reminded me of some of the really the lowest points in my earlier career. And people seem to enjoy hearing horror stories, so I'm going to just start with a couple. So one of the worst ones, I was in a beautiful bookstore in Vermont. It was in northern Vermont, and it was, I can't remember which book it was for. This was years ago. And it was torrential rain. So I drove there from Maine to Vermont in this monsoon. And I hate driving too. So here I am driving through the rain. I get there, and this young woman was there. She was the events coordinator, and she was very young. This was her first big girl job after college, and she was very excited about it. And she had been appointed the events coordinator for this very lovely independent bookstore. And she said, she'd been emailing me saying, oh, this is going to be so great. I have, these book clubs are coming, and I've done this thing where I'm raffling you off. So, because they had this little pub right next door, and she said, and the winner gets to have wine with you in the pub. And I said, oh, okay, that's fine. But in the meantime, my publisher had put me up. They were going to put me up at this beautiful old inn, the kind that's modern, but looks like 4-poster beds and fluffy pillows. And I'm thinking that is going to be the thing, So I get there, and I knew immediately. First of all, it was still pouring rain, and these book clubs that were supposed to come didn't come. And the woman who won me didn't show up. And so there were maybe, 6 people just sitting in the front. She had 40 chairs set up. And I could tell she was disappointed, but I'm like, this is nothing new. I mean, this happens all the time to writers on the road. It was fine. And so I just did my thing as if it were 40 people. And so at the end, I said, well, thank you. And so I come to this little person who's, she says, oh, well, thank you so much. I said, oh, it's delightful. I have a beautiful store, and you did a great job. And so we're going down the stairs. It was a 2-level. And she just bursts into tears. And she goes, I'm so sorry. I tried everything. I thought this was going to work, and nobody came. And I'm like, oh, my goodness. I said, you're new at this, aren't you? I said, don't worry. I said, these things happen. Every single writer has a story, 10 stories like this from book tours. Everybody thinks it's all, glamour and crowds, and it isn't. And you just never know. You did your job. I did my job. And the gods said no, and that's fine. I said, and she would not stop weeping. So I said, and I'm thinking about that bed, that fluffy bed. I said, well, I'll tell you what, why don't we go and have a glass of wine? So we did, and that was one of the lowlights, but there are even lower ones. One was in Santa Rosa, California, and my husband was with me on this one, so he can absolutely vouch for the veracity of this story. So it was, this was for, I think it was for Any Bitter Thing, and that was actually a great tour, but this was one of the things that happen on tour. So we get to this store, and it's another little independent bookstore, and it's in one of those very small strip malls. And I look over, and there's no sign out front. There's no poster on the, thinking, okay, something feels a little off here. And I get in the store, and it had that mausoleum quality that I had learned to sniff out. It was also a Friday evening, which is a terrible time for a book event, just awful, which I didn't know then and I know now, live and learn. And so I get there and this young woman is there, forgot I was coming, sets up some chairs, and I think maybe 5 people showed up, or 5 souls showed up, and 2 of those souls were dogs. This couple comes in with 2 carriers, little carriers, I thought they were cats, and out come not Yorkshire Terriers and not miniature Yorkshire, but the next thing down from that, like a toy, yes. They were about the size of a glass of milk, and there were plenty of seats, so they took the dogs out of their carriers, put each one on its own seat, and they were all dressed up for their Friday night outing. One of them was wearing like a tartan kilt dealie, and the other one had on a very well-fitting Hawaiian shirt. And the worst part of the whole evening is those dogs thought I was amazing. They sat there the whole time with those wet, beady eyes, just looking, hanging on my every word. It was so embarrassing. And then the only other person, like there were maybe 3 or 4, and there was a person from my hometown there. And I'm thinking, this is just great. I was going to get back to everybody that nobody came to my book event. So that was one. And then there's one more I will mention. And this is the pièce de résistance, because it was Denver, Colorado. And it's a bookstore there that has, we've got some seats right down in front here. There's 3 seats here. So it's Denver, Colorado. And it's this store that does a lot of book events. And they have a big event space downstairs, like really big, that it's the kind of thing where you have those walls that can close so you can make it a smaller room. Well, the author who was there the night before I was Bill Clinton. So the place was completely open. There were like 700 chairs. And they just left it that way. So here I come, I don't know people in this area. And this place is a big stage and a lectern, and so it's made for a ginormous audience. And the only people who came were my dear nephew's wedding party, because he was getting married the next day, so they all came. A guy who came in for the wine, and my husband's old girlfriend. That was pretty much the bottom rung of the ladder. That is the book tour. So here I am again, much later, and better events with lovely people like you who turn out on a beautiful evening. The new book is called How to Read a Book, and I'll tell you how this title got here. It's not mine. A little later. And in the book, you follow 3 characters. The characters are Violet Powell, who is a 22-year-old woman who is just finishing up a prison sentence for a drunk driving accident in which she killed a kindergarten teacher named Lorraine Daigle. The next character you meet is Harriet Larson, who is a retired English teacher. She's about to have an empty nest, and to kind of fill up her time, she is doing a book club as a volunteer in the prison where Violet is serving her time, and that's how they know each other. And the third character is a man named Frank Daigle. He's a retired machinist, and he is currently working as a very overqualified handyman at a bookstore in Portland, Maine. And it's people will recognize it. It's modeled after Longfellow Books on Monument Square. And they took a couch out like a couple of years ago, and I've been complaining about it ever since. So I put it in the book as a big hint. So the couch is back in my book. So I'm waiting for the real thing to come back. So what happens is one day, soon after Violet's release, the 3 of these people meet in the bookstore. Harriet's there to order some more books for the next session. Frank is there working. And Violet is there because she has been dumped in Portland, Maine. Her family has completely abandoned her. And she can't think of anything to do except go to the nearest bookstore and pick up the book that they were reading when she left so she can find out how it ends. So this is why they're in the store. And I should add that Frank is the widower of the woman that Violet killed in the accident. So the three of them encounter each other in the store, and their lives begin to entwine in ways that fuel the plot of the book. It's a book about, when people ask me what is the book about, I don't say all that. What I say is that it's a book about making family out of broken parts. It's a book about the art of forgiving the unforgivable, both in ourselves and in other people, especially in ourselves, because I have found as an observer of the human condition that we are all far more likely to bestow the grace of forgiveness on someone else, even a stranger, far easier than we will do the same for ourselves. And that is what Violet, and not just Violet, some other people in this book are trying to do. So these are the three characters. Violet's parts are in the first person. She speaks directly to the reader. And the reason for that narrative choice becomes clear quite late in the game. And then the other two you hear from in the third person in their point of view. So what I'd like to do, just to give you a sense of what my writing is like and to give you at least one of the characters, I'm going to read a condensed version of chapter 1. So if you do get the book and you read it, you have to start all over again because I've left some things out that you'll want to make sure you get. So it takes about 15 minutes to read this chapter, just so you know. And here it is. Chapter 1, Violet. The visitor's room is exactly the functional state-designed space you'd expect. A bland, boring rectangle, solid wall at each end, and a bank of windows along both sides. One bank of windows opens to the outs, a skeleton of barbed wire where goldfinches sometimes light, and beyond that, a bumpy, sloping field, tufts of this and thickets of that, whose colors change all year long. On this day I'm thinking of, I am 22 years old, on short time that still feels long, and the field is snow-covered, bluish, with dead stalks sticking out here and there like cries for help. The walls are naked except for a poster that shows you what to do in case of choking. No furniture except for a table and 13 armless ass-pinching chairs. What color there is runs from putty to Band-Aid, but when we're all here, the room feels warmish, lived in. The other bank of windows runs along the main corridor, and across that corridor, another bank of windows looks into the chow hall. Not a wall in the place without a window in it. Doors, too. Everything here is designed to murder your privacy. I can still see us so clearly. 12 women dressed in our blues, and the book lady at the head of the table, sensible button-up blouse patterned with smiley green bees, helping us discuss a book we hate. I feel the way I always feel in book club, the way I believe we all feel, safe. The book is called Scar Tissue, a so-called true story about a famous cardiac surgeon who grew up eating dirt, actual literal dirt from a junky front yard in East Texas, dirt sprinkled on her Cheerios, punishment for reading the newspaper. Donna Lynn goes first, as usual. She swipes her stringy hair behind her ears. What do we care about a rich lady doctor whose biggest tragedy is winter in New York City? It's snow, lady, says Renee. Get over yourself. Like most of us, Renee and Donna Lynn grew up in Maine and take great exception to a famous cardiac surgeon's whining about 2 inches of slush as she pushes a double stroller across 5th fucking Avenue. Kitten says, nobody eats dirt for 16 years and gets to be a famous cardiac surgeon. Then Shayna, nobody eats dirt for 16 years and gets adorable twins with matching dimples. Then Jacinta, I wouldn't walk across the street to spit on her. And Marielle, no way her low-life parents were secretly educated and talented. And Jenny Big, you can't hide talent. Automatically, we look at Donna Lynn. At my first town meeting, she belted all the comic songs from her high school's long ago production of Guys and Dolls, and even the COs broke up laughing. Dorothy, who has 6 kids and bladder prolapse, literally peed her pants. I was new and scared, and the show made me laugh so hard I suddenly believed I could stand the next 28 months without dying of despair. It was also sad, though, because Donna Lynn, whose nickname is Showtime, has a Broadway voice that should have given her a different life. A choice here, a choice there. She could be posing in a ball gown with her Tony Award instead of hamming it up at town meeting in her blues. I understand your point, the book lady says. She always understands our point because she's a retired English teacher who enjoys lively discussion. Plus, she likes us. However, she adds, which she always does, in order for reading to become an exercise in empathy, it helps to think of all the characters in all the books as fellow creatures. Even the ones we don't understand, says Britty, who's got the pointy face and eye circles of a tame raccoon. Jenny Big adds on cue, even the ones we don't like. Desiree finishes up, even the ones we hate with the fiery shitballs of hell. The book lady, who is older lady, pretty, with a sweet peachy face and soft jowls, opens her hands. There you go, it's not that hard. In the year and a half since we've been coming to book club, the book lady has tried out all kinds of authors, from Virginia Woolf to Zadie Smith, and we've complained about them all. We love complaining. It's weirdly empowering. The book lady hasn't figured that out yet. Not that we don't have preferences. Our favorite stretch started last fall when we asked for the classics most of us had read in high school and remembered from before. To Kill a Mockingbird, Of Mice and Men, The Great Gatsby. Those books felt like family. Those books took us through the worst of winter, a heartless one, too much snow, too many days without yard time. Ethan Frome was the last of the bunch, and this time around, I read it with different eyes. Beautiful Maddie turns into a querulous hag after a sledding accident with Ethan. It's basically about how life sucks and nobody who deserves love ever gets it. The author should have called it Ethan Frome, God Hates Your Guts, Donna Lynn said at the time. So the book lady, of course, asked us what we thought about God, a question that lasted us through the remainder of the session. Every Friday, 2 hours, books, books, books. We get to keep them after we're done, and that's no small thing, a stack of triumphs under the bed. Today, we're at the end of that dismal winter, discussing a flashback to where the famous cardiac surgeon first meets her gorgeous financial manager husband in the elevator of their apartment building. We already know this guy, whose obnoxiousness through 27 chapters goes right over the author's head, but she's circling back to their first meeting to show us that life has a shape, but you don't see the shape until later. Good point, I'll give her that. Then Shayna pipes up out of the blue that one time her boyfriend threw her clothes out the window of their second floor apartment because she wouldn't give him a blowjob before she left for work. This is book club, this out of the blueness, because reading books, even annoying books about lucky people who think they grew up tragically, gets us talking. My boyfriend did that, Desiree says. 3rd floor, my clothes, plus my purse, plus my elephant figurines, everything smashed on the street. Jacinta goes next. 4th floor, my clothes, my purse, my mom's jewelry. Me too, says Renee. 5th floor, plus my cat. Renee is short and dark and pretty, and I really, really hate that her cat got tossed. But this happens a lot, a game called Who Got It Worst, and most of it's true. Then Amy, little Amy, who looks about 12, a shivering little field mouse. She says, my husband threw my baby. He threw my baby out the window. I didn't really care about the clothes. Usually by the time somebody gets sent up, even if the reason is of the sort that makes the news, it's months or more since the coverage. So we either don't remember or don't care. But when the reason is throwing a baby into the street, it sticks. So sometimes we know. Either way, we don't talk about our reasons. We talk about before, what we ate, where we lived, old TV shows, never about our reason, even if everybody knows what it is. They know mine. As for Amy, her reason was actually the husband's reason. He's the one who did the baby throwing. A jury of her so-called peers did not believe this. Imagine the courtroom, husband, a good-looking civil engineer, wife, Amy, a pitifully young mother with depression so bad her lawyers can't get her to comb her hair, which is how she lands on the inside, crying for her baby at book club, and he winds up on the outs, managing a bridge project. The book lady has gone super quiet. We call her Bookie, Bookie the book lady. On her first day, she introduced herself as Harriet, first name only, of course, millions of rules. But within a month, we knew her last name, Larson, and the name of her street, Belmont, and the make of her car, Toyota Corolla Marine Blue. Her house is a Queen Anne with deep windowsills, loved by Tabsy, the book lady's black and white, overweight, indoor-only, prone to vomiting cat. We're not supposed to know these things. But the book lady, for all her methodical handouts and typed lesson plans, treats us like a bunch of girls just talking. The book lady is thinking, everybody quits us sooner or later, mostly sooner. And if I were the book lady, the last thing I'd do is come here once a week to hang out with ingrates who complain about my reading choices. Of the 15 books she's brought in by now, not one has met with unanimous approval. In the stillness of the book lady's gaze, I'm glad to have read those 15 books. The library here, oh my God, nothing but romance and double agents. I can't say I loved The Great Gatsby, but sometimes a sparkling sentence can really rip you up. So we drove on toward death through the cooling twilight. A sentence like that can put you someplace other than the shithole where you happen to be reading it. Or it's an ambush that puts you exactly in the shithole where you happen to be reading it. The book lady contemplates her hands. Maybe she's considering a kindly, diplomatic way to say she's just about had it. But no, instead, she takes off her reading glasses and says, not once, not in my entire 64 years, has a man thrown my things out a window. You can almost hear the room relax, like a let-go balloon. You're lucky, Bookie, says Jacinta. That's right, Jacinta, I am lucky. Not everybody's lucky, Kitten says. Kitten, I married a man who loved me. That would be Lou, says Renee. Yes, Renee, dear Lou. He died, though, says Marielle. Marielle, a Millhands kid, beefy and tender. Well, yes, Marielle, but we had a good run. Shayna says, when your niece leaves for California, all you'll have left is Tabsy. Oh, but Shayna, Tabsy makes for a wonderful husband, the book lady says. And then we're all laughing because we've sort of fallen for Tabsy ourselves. And the book lady is clearly not leaving us. Then we're back on track talking about luck and books and life and why the scar tissue author's flawless twins don't deserve a $40,000 per kid preschool. Oh, darn, the book lady says. She frowns at the wall clock like its sole purpose is to ruin fun. Quitting time already. This moment always catches me unaware. The door opens and real life thunders in. A howl from Four-Walk, the iron echo of a CO coming in one door or going out another. Wait, before we go, I have a surprise, the book lady says, which always means a new book. She slumps her satchel on the table and removes the stack. It was written in the 40s, but you'll find it feels quite contemporary. People call it a novel, but in fact, it's 2 novellas. A little murmur of approval. Novella sounds kind of swanky, or at least short. It's about a brother and sister at a crossroad in their lives, separate but related crossroads. The sister is experiencing either a crisis of faith or a nervous breakdown. Won't it be fun to discuss which it is? She passes out copies of the book, Franny and Zooey by J.D. Salinger. A burst of energy zings around the room because some of us already know this author. I pick up my copy and hold it. I like the weight of a book, any book, in my hand. This one's pretty, small and slim, plain white cover with stocky black letters. I read Catcher in the Rye in 8th grade, I tell the book lady. Catcher in the Rye is for innocence, the book lady says, as Roberts, the ugliest CO in the place, looms outside the door because God forbid we get 2 extra seconds of book club. This one's for people with some life behind them. We like the sound of that. We are women with some life behind us. We know some things. The feeling lasts till I get out to the corridor, and then there I am. Or I should say, there we are. And by we, I include not only the other women, but the souls who came here with us, invisible but present, like hovering ghosts. Some of them are alive, somewhere on the outs, greatly altered, maybe forever, by something we did. And some of them are dead, also because of something we did. On certain days, the quieter days when nobody gets written up or logged or dragged to the fishbowl, the days when the place feels not like a dementia unit on Mars, but like an animal shelter filled with calm dogs, I can almost see them, our reasons, small, smoky thicknesses in the air, like guardian angels in a way, guarding our memory of them. They float among us, quiet and uncomplaining, and they refuse to disappear. Come dark in the quiet of your cot, you can taste them like ash after fire. We don't talk about this, but we know. We know this about each other. Our reasons meet us in the morning and whisper to us at night. Mine is an innocent, unsuspecting, eternally 61-year-old woman named Lorraine Daigle. She is part of me now, a sliver of bone knitted to one of my bones. At night, locked down, prayers said, I murmur, night, Briddy, and Briddy whispers, night, Violet. After that, in the blessed privacy of my own head, I think whisper, night, Lorraine. Every night I think whisper this. At the age of 22, I do not yet know how many more days God will give me, but I know this. I will think whisper, night, Lorraine, at the end of every single one. That's Violet. This is my 6th novel, and all the other ones were written more or less with the same process, and everything about this book was different. I'm not sure why. Partly it might have been COVID. This was written mostly all of it was written during COVID. And it came to me in a way that books never come to me. And the way people who don't write novels think novels come to writers, which is a bolt from the blue in the middle of the night, if only. But this one came to me as a bolt from the blue in the middle of the night. So it was, I remember so clearly, it was the summer of 2019, it was late August. And I had the blues. You know, I was just in a kind of one of those places we are in sometimes just by being humans. And when this happens to me, I get really bad insomnia. And so night after night, I'm just waking up and going back to sleep, waking up. And when I woke, I could hear this voice speaking, it kind of like a murmuring monologue going on. I mean, I wasn't hearing voices. I knew it was a narrative voice. It was a character asking to be born, in other words. And I remember saying to this, I knew it was a woman, I said, I'm really sorry. I had been writing plays at that point. I said, I'm a playwright now, go find somebody else. And the next night, same thing, that voice, I just couldn't shake it. So I thought, well, what if I just write it all down and then put it away and it'll be just kind of out of my hair and then I can go back to sleep. So I did. It was a really hot night and I live in Portland, Maine. And I grabbed a notebook and I went downstairs and my stairs faced the front door and it was a really warm night. So it was just the screen door open and there's a street light right on the street. So I had just enough light to see by. And I wrote down what then became the first chapter of this book. Not exactly, obviously, because I didn't realize what it even was at that time. But I wrote it all down. And then I went back upstairs and I put it in a drawer and I thought, well, that is that. If I need it sometime, I'll take it and do something with it. So the next night, about 3:30, same thing, I wake up and Harriet is speaking to me. Same exact thing. Her name was Shirley at the time. I hardly ever, characters come named, I hardly ever change their name, but I did change Shirley to Harriet, which is kind of the same name in a way. It's, the same generation and everything. So I did the same thing. I went downstairs. I wrote what Harriet was saying. It was less coherent. I wasn't quite sure who she was or why she was talking, but I wrote all that down, put it away, and that seemed to do the trick. I thought, great, that's good. And then about a month or two later, maybe a little bit longer than that, I was so intensely curious about how these two people were connected that I started to write the book. And that is how this book started. And the other thing that was very different is the process I used to write it, because normally my writing process is kind of horrifying, actually, to my fellow writers. But we all have our own process, and you learn to respect it. You learn that's just, there's no other way to do it for this writer, and somebody else has a completely different process. That's their way. My way is to write a lot of pages, like 50, 75 pages, to find out what the story might be. Because all I start with is a character with a problem. That's it. Somebody in trouble, some kind of trouble. Because the story doesn't start until trouble starts. Nobody wants to read about Mr. and Mrs. Happy living in Happy Land forever. So the minute you put some trouble in there, then it's okay. You got a story going. So I write all those pages, and then I completely ditch them. They're not even on my hard drive. And I start all over again with what I have learned about the characters. I have a much better idea of who I'm working with, what their problem might be, how they might react to pressure. It's like getting to know an actual person. You don't really know somebody until you see them at work, or how they operate under pressure, how they are with other people. And it's exactly the same thing with a fictional character. They don't just come as they are. You have to find out who they are. So that was interesting. And I thought the other thing was, so instead of doing it that way, I thought I didn't really want to spend 4 years on a novel, which is what it takes. And I'm thinking, I am old now, and time's a wasting, and I don't know how many more novels I can get before, And so I thought, I got to start writing faster. So I have heard people say that they do the first draft, they just go from beginning to end, just plow through the story, don't mind that the structure is ridiculous, or that the characters don't make sense, or that the writing is absolutely awful. Just do it that way. So I kind of did it that way. I did a lot of revising on the way, kind of cheating, but I thought I'm just going to try to just see if I can stumble through some semblance of a story and see where I get. It took exactly 1 year, which is 1 year shorter than it would normally take me to write a first draft. So that was amazing. And then I had, it was baggy and lumpy, and a lot of it didn't make sense, but I knew I had something. And then I spent another year, almost to the day, with the fun stuff of writing, which is characterization, dialogue, sentence to sentence, just the language, all the fun stuff about writing. Plotting is not fun, but all the other stuff is really fun. So I did that in a year, which was also, so that exactly half the time it took me than normal. And I thought, well, this can't be any good, because I didn't spend enough time with these people. But I sent it to my agent, and in the meantime, all these things have, publishing is a really dysfunctional, weird business. But anyway, in the meantime, my publisher had been sold to a different publisher. So I was now with HarperCollins, which is one of the big five. It's a big giant. They have, I don't know how many, like hundreds of imprints. This is Mariner Books, which is an imprint of HarperCollins. And it's what used to be Houghton Mifflin Harcourt's trade paper line. And they sold that whole thing to HarperCollins. So now I had a new publisher, and my editor, who did come over with the sale, she's my vintage, she's like maybe 68 or so. And she said, I'm not positive that I will be here. She didn't mean on Earth, she meant working in, she's an excellent elf. But she said, I'm not quite sure I'm gonna be here for the whole run, because you really need, these days, you need your team to be in place all the way through. You need advocates in-house to make sure the book gets what it needs on the way to publication, which is a very bumpy road. You know, in the old days, it used to be an editor bought a book, well, fell in love with a manuscript and said, I want this book, and it was fine. That's what you did. These days, you have all of these things. You have these meetings, they're called launch meetings, where the editor brings the manuscript to a bunch of people in a room, and everybody in-house has to read at least part of it. I'm not kidding, the person who answers the phone, the person who might be the eventual paperback editor, the salesperson, the marketing person, the publicity person, everybody has to be on board. It has to be like a committee thing to accept a manuscript. It's just difficult, and it's just the way it is now. And I miss the old days, but this is just the way it is. And everything is electronic, so you don't have, I've never met my editor for this book. But my old editor, Deanne, who was just wonderful, she said, I'm not sure I'll be able to shepherd this thing through. So I'm going to turn this over to Jessica Vestuto, who is somebody I've been working with for 3 years now. I think she's incredibly smart. I think she would love this book, and I think you two would get along really well. And she's 25. I thought, oh my goodness, I mean, that's a big generation gap. And I thought, I'm not sure we're gonna, you know, speak the same language. I don't know if she's experienced enough to really do what's needed for this book. You know, it's tooth and claw, this industry, and it takes a lot to establish yourself. And this would have been her first book that she acquired on her own. And I'm just so proud that it is now. Anyway, I met her, I instantly just loved her. She is so smart, and she's kind of a wise old soul. You know, I really believe she's been around for centuries somehow. And so we had a wonderful editorial relationship. And she did, even at her age, I mean, it takes decades to learn these things, but even at her young age, she knew just instinctively that a good editor does one thing really well. They don't try to bend the book to their will, like to try to get you to kind of do what they would have done with the same material. They also don't kind of capitulate to the author's will, because sometimes the authors want things in their books that don't belong because they just love, I don't know, salt and pepper collections. So they think they need a salt and pepper collection in this book, but really that does not work. Instead, she asks all the questions to bend the book to its own will, to try to figure out what the book wants to be. And I really responded to that because I do feel, I have this feeling of books as having their own intentions, that it's almost like it's not an animal exactly. I mean, it's not sentient. And I understand that I'm the brains of this operation, but there is something about writing that is sort of just magic. I don't know how else to explain process. And I have this weird feeling, and I'm not a woo-woo person at all, but I have this notion that any work of art, like a song or a poem or a novel or anything, is out there in the ether somewhere fully formed already. And they just kind of float around until they find the right vessel. And they just hope that you have the chops to do it. And sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. And all you can do is the best you can with what you have at the time. So I feel like I'm glad these three characters came to me now when I'm a far more experienced writer. I don't think I would have done as well by them, 20 years ago. And one thing about being a writer is age is really on your side. You only get better. Your craft gets better. And more than that, you experience so much more of life. You know more about tragedy, you know more about loss, you know more about people, you know more about the place you're in. It's only helpful as long as you can keep your wits about you. Older writers, it's time is on your side. If I'd wanted to be a professional ice skater, I'd have been washed up 40 years ago. But because I'm a writer, I feel like my best work is still ahead of me, and it's a wonderful feeling to have. The other thing about, is it really hot in here? Yeah. Can we put the fan back on? That would be great. Like, wow. Thank you. Oh, yay, that's good. All right, breeze is coming. Perfect, thank you. The other thing that was a little different about how I wrote this book is in my, writerly dotage, I discovered that I have a writing group now. I have never, ever worked with a writing group. And then 8 years ago, my friend Kate Christensen, who's a wonderful novelist, thought she needed a writing group. So she picked 4 writers that she knew, and we have been together for 8 years now. And it's my friend Bill Rohrbach, who is a marvelous, he has a book that just came out. Sarah Bronstein, her second novel just came out. Kate, whose millionth novel came out at the beginning of January, and Lewis Robinson, whose third book is coming out September. And it's just coincidentally, I guess, but we all have books out this year. And we have read hundreds of pages for each other over and over again. And we have maybe even an unhealthy proprietary feeling about each other's books, because we really feel like we had a lot to do with the final outcome, because we did, honestly, we really did. So as all of this was going on, I was writing this book, but I was also writing a play. And so it was really fun when it was my turn to bring something, because it would be 90 pages, but you look at the pages and there's tons of white space on these because it's all dialogue. And the way we did mine is not by reading, but by reading aloud. So we all took parts, which was very fun. We are terrible actors, but that is a good thing, because if you give a script to good actors, they make it seem way better than it is. They have just a talent for they can take it and just make it sound like gold. And bad actors can make it even worse than it is. So that you'll find all the flaws in the script because of the acting that you have. They would be very insulted, by the way, to have me say that they're bad actors. They weren't terrible, but definitely not professional. And but we did the best we could and had a lot of fun doing it. And so they helped me not only with this book, but also with a play that I had last November at Portland Stage called Saint Dad, which was very fun. And playwriting, I have to say, is such a joy, because, writing is a solitary thing to do. And when you're writing a play, there's a lot of the time you have is because you can't ask people to read a play. You have to hear it and see it. So you have all these readings beforehand, and then once it gets into production, you're in a rehearsal room with all these actors, and everybody's on your side, and they want it to be the best it can be. And it's just a wonderful. I definitely am going to write another play. I don't know if I'm going to write another novel, but I know for sure I'm going to write another play. So the other thing I want to say about the book, and then I'll open it up to questions if you have them, is anybody who knows any of my work, you know that I really like putting my characters to work. I like reading books where I see characters doing jobs that I don't know anything about. I like learning something while I'm interested in a story. And so in this one, I mean, Harriet wasn't a stretch. She's a woman of a certain age who loves books, and that was not researchable. But Frank, who is a retired machinist, I really had to do some work to figure out how I was going to, how he sees the world, or more like how he perceives the world. My father-in-law was a machinist, and my husband, who's there, cute one in the blue shirt back there.
Conspicuous.
He worked with his dad as a machinist early on, and he now works at SMCC in the Architectural and Engineering Design Department. So he hooked me up with the Precision Machine Tool program there, and it's a wonderful program that trains machinists. And I went to class once a week for a semester, not 5 days a week, I just went once, to learn how to do the machines and I learned a lot of things. And I learned how to run a milling machine and a lathe, and I learned how to, it's all stuff I'm so bad at. I don't have great hand-eye coordination. My spatial perception is down around 0. I've been tested. Measuring, forget it. And it was really good for the brain to learn all these things that you're not good at. And I fell in love with the measuring instruments. They're these little things called micrometers. Has anybody here ever used a micrometer? all the men. They're so cute. They're these little round, I still have my micrometer, I just love it. And they're so precise, and you have to learn how to read it. So that was fun. And the class was 12, 19-year-old boys. So they were incredibly accommodating and very kind to me. And I think there was something about a novelist being in there doing research on a character who was going to be, they're being trained to do what this character is doing. So they were very helpful to me. One of them turned out to be from my hometown, which was really sweet. His name was Cameron, big football player type. But we had a really good time, and I went on all the field trips with them as well. So I'd go once a week, and then if they were having a field trip, I would do that. So we went to a lot of small manufacturing places in southern Maine, and there's a lot of them. That's one thing I learned. And so I went to this one place, and they manufacture big pipe things that are kind of corrugated, and you can tell how much I learned in my class. And it's for microwaves to go through. So there's these big giant things that microwaves go through. And also people think of machine shops as like greasy, and these days you can eat off the floor because everything is computer controlled, and the machines I just think they're beautiful. Anyway, so we go in there, and it's me and the boys and our teacher and our goggles. And so we're walking through, and I look over there and I'm thinking, I bet that guy is the tool and die man. I was just pretty sure. He kind of had old school tools, and he was over in a place by himself. So I walk over there, and he looks at me, and I said, "Excuse me, could I ask you a question?" And he looks at me, he looks over at these boys, and he says, "Can I ask you a question?" But he was full of information. He was really great. And so I got a lot of information that way. But honestly, what I really needed to know was more the sensory stuff. Like, what does a piece of metal feel like in your hand? What do those machines sound like? The other thing is, when you're on a milling machine, you get these little chips that come out, and they really pinch. And that's something I didn't realize. I had all these little marks on my arm. And also, standing at a milling machine for 4 hours at a time is very hard on the body, which I did not know. And I'm thinking, well, Frank, his back is probably shot. I bet his feet hurt all the time. And these are the kinds of things you can't know unless you go inside a little bit. So all of the things I learned about, the ins and outs of the machinery and everything, I used about this, but I needed all of that in order to feel like I had the authority to render Frank on the page. And then the other thing I did was I had followed the career of this woman named Dr. Irene Pepperberg for years. And I have been waiting decades to put this job in a book, and it would be a lab assistant to a behavioral research scientist who is studying avian cognition in African gray parrots. And this was the book. I finally got it. So it's an actual thing. And this woman has been doing research since the 70s on animal intelligence. And when she was first starting out, people did not take her seriously at all, because the only animal intelligence studies there were with big primates. So they were teaching gorillas sign language and that sort of thing. And she was completely dismissed in her work. It was a man's world back then, and she was a woman, in a man's world. So there was that. But also they're thinking parrots, they're bird brains. And their brains are this big, but there's a lot going on in those little brains. So long story short, she has demonstrated in study after study that this species of animal can count. They can do quantities. They can, it's called labeling. That's when you say this is a book, and they mean a book, they're not just imitating. They know this is a book. They know colors, numbers, materials, shapes. It's kind of amazing. So you could put on a tray in front of this bird, Griffin. I met them. They were incredible. So Griffin can look at a tray of things, and they're all different colors. There's different objects on the tray. They're made of different materials. And let's say there's a red key. They love keys. A red key, a red wool ball and a red piece of paper, and then a whole bunch of other things. And you say, Griffin, how many red? He'll say 3. Actually, he'll say 3. And if you say, how many wool? And there's 2 things out of all the stuff that's made of wool. One might be red, yellow, whatever, and he'll say 2. And he can do that up to, I think, 7 things. So he can count to 7 or 8. And just to give you an idea of how smart this bird is, this is probably a publicity thing, but the Dr. Pepperberg invited 12 Harvard freshmen, total smarty pants, into the lab to go one-on-one with Griffin on that old boardwalk shell game where you hide something and then you put cups over it, except this was not one object. There's 4 pom-poms, and the birds love pom-poms. They would step on their grandmother's face to get to a pom-pom. They like shredding things, so pom-poms, their favorite thing. So there's yellow, green, red, blue, and you show them, you show the bird the things, and then you put the cups over each one, and you say, where is white? And he'll peck the white one. And you say, where is blue? He'll peck the blue one. You open it up and show him it's correct. And then you turn it, and you say, where is green? So he's not just following the white pom-pom, he's following 4 different color pom-poms. And when he went head to head with the Harvard freshmen doing the same game, he kicked their asses into the middle of next week. It was amazing. So he can do up to 5 switches, which most people, I'm not sure I could do 2. And the theory is that in the wilds, they have large clutches and they have to keep track of who's been fed and who hasn't. And that's possibly why they're so good at this particular skill. So, okay, so I will be happy to open it up to questions now if anybody has any, and fire away.
I
Yes.
just want to thank you for saying that, because I got an email last April, because we caught a vegan, and I saw this advertisement. I was good at Winter Harbor, who said.
Oh, they did that here, that's right.
So anyway, I got the tickets, and I'm telling my lady friends, no, yeah, I got the tickets. My husband and I are going to go see St. Dad, and I tried to explain it to them, and they were like, oh, let us know how it is. So when I told him we're going to go see a play called St. Dad, he said, so what's it about? And I said, you'll be totally surprised. Because the look I got from my ladies, I said, I think I'm just going to surprise. And when we got home, we just said it was absolutely.
Oh, I'm so glad. I didn't get to see that production of St. Dad.
Absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm just so glad that I got tickets for it, got a chance to see it. That's when I heard St. Dad, and I went, I'm going to see the author, we did the play, we did the book, and now I'm going to go, oh my God.
Yeah, oh, thank you.
That's why I was like, oh, connection.
Yeah.
At least I got 2 things connected.
Yes, thank you.
So I want to thank you for the play, because if anybody gets a chance, go see it. It was.
I think it's being done, and this is about my play, St. Dad, which was, it debuted at Portland Stage in November, and then the Schoodic Arts
Yeah, the Winter
did it.
Harbor Arts
Winter
Festival.
Harbor, yeah.
Your play kicked it off.
They did
It
it.
was your play,
yeah.
it was at Memorial.
And it's going to be done again by a community theater in Lincolnville. Is that near here-ish? Yeah, Lincolnville. And they're doing it, I'm not sure when, but that's also coming up. So
But
that's
yeah,
really nice. Thank
I
you.
just want to say phenomenal.
Thank you.
I never would have thought of, Dad's gonna die, so let's just sell the place. Oh, wait a minute, Dad just did a 180.
Yeah,
Now we gotta figure it all out.
yeah. Well, that's what I mean about starting with characters with a problem, and that one was a doozy. But thank you so much for that. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
I wanted to say phenomenal.
Oh, yes,
You indicated, when I was talking to you before about name changes,
yes.
so you want to speak to that in terms of the name you want for a book and the name.
Oh, titles, you mean? Yeah. Oh, right. Okay, so the title, How to Read a Book, is not my title. The real title is Meanwhile, which is a fantastic title. So just don't tell me. But, and we were almost there. We're almost there. And my editor contacted me and she said, we have a few questions. Sales and marketing had some questions about the title. And I'm like, oh, here we go. Because the same thing happened with my, the 1 in a Million boy. That was also not my title. And I said, okay. She said, they think it's too quiet and literary, which is exactly what they said about the last one. And I held out for like a minute and then just kind of caved. But she said, so we've been doing a lot of research about titles. And I said, okay. And she said, we have discovered that books that have the word book in the title do really well. So do you think you could, is it possible that we could think up a title that has book in the title? So they came up with some that were just non-starters for me. And I thought, this is, I don't know if I want to do this. And then all of a sudden, How to Read a Book just popped into my head. And even if it's not the best title, I mean, it's the title. And I think it works in two ways. I don't know if anybody has read the book, but for starters, Harriet really is teaching people how to read a book, not just to read with empathy, but she teaches them things about structure, and she can't resist the English teacher in her. And the other thing is, once you get to the end of the book, you understand that you have been learning how to read this book. So it worked on 2 levels, and I'm very happy with it. But everybody asks, is it fiction? And there is a nonfiction book that was published in, I think, 1942 called How to Read a Book. And it is about how to read a book. So, yeah, which I didn't know at the time. Somebody else? Yes.
Yeah, so when you talked about 1 in a Million boy, and then they translated the title and then the book covers.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've gotten to that point with this, but that was very interesting, very funny about how they changed it.
Yes.
Look with the boy, you know, putting the bike, suspended in the blip.
Oh, yeah.
There's just, yeah, so I wonder, you're running into some of that with this.
Not yet, because it's early.
Still early,
Yeah, but I will, I'm sure. But you have, when the foreigners get a hold of the book, and plus, you know, you can't read it, so you don't know what they did with it, really. But, so, I mean, you just hope it's a close enough. But, yeah, so with the 1 in a Million boy, there were so many of those, and they all had different covers, and some of them were beautiful, and some of them were just head scratching. One was, and this turned up on 4 different covers, the Slovenians, the Italians, the French, and I think Israel did that crazy one that had, I still can't figure it out. It had a flying whale with a little boy in an airplane suspended from the whale. I mean, I have no idea where this idea came from. It had nothing to do with the book. It was just so bizarre. And then 4 other foreign publishers used the same cover. It was crazy. So you just kind of hope for the best, honestly. But I think How to Read a Book, I mean, the problem with the 1 in a Million boy, it's kind of an idiom that didn't translate in a lot of languages. And in fact, in Korea, the closest they have is the only boy in the world. So they have this beautiful expression. If they're trying to compliment you, they would say, you're the only audience in the world, meaning there's no other, you know, that compares. So sometimes it was things like that. And sometimes it was something completely different. And one of my earlier titles for that novel was The Waking World. And the Germans used that title just by chance, which was crazy to me. So yeah, it's very interesting. Yes.
Where'd you get the idea of the 1 in a Million boy?
Oh, where did I get the idea? All I had at the beginning was, I knew there was a grief-stricken person climbing up the stairs to a porch where a very, very old person lived. That is all I had. I didn't know who was who, nothing. And then I had the door open and it was this 104-year-old woman. And I named her Ona immediately. She was named. Quinn was named. That's just how it happens. It's all from the subconscious. You know, again, I think it's all in there whole somehow, but it just kind of dribbles out in pieces. It's a weird, writing is, it's very hard to describe that process. Anybody else? Okay, then, I think we're done here. Very happy to stick around and sign books.